Okay. So as I mentioned to you the other day, you're going to get 2 written response. They're right at the very back of the booklet. They're going to be a single scenario with anywhere from 3 to 5 questions per written response. And each of those individual parts, like A, B, C, D, each of those parts can pull from different units. Okay. Learning to walk. Step 1. Okay, so each of those parts come from a different unit. So I kind of did one on exponents and logs the other day. So I want to do this one with you, and it kind of pulls mostly from the trig unit. But again, on your ones that we're going to do together here in a minute, they're going to pull from different units. Okay, so it says the English Channel is a body of water that separates England and France. Each year, swimmers from around the world attempt to swim across this channel. In preparation for her solo swim, Leah has researched the predicted tide height for the particular day that she plans to swim. The predicted height of the tide in meters as a function of the number of hours after midnight. Okay, so right here, this thing right here, hours after midnight, what that means is that 0 means midnight. 5 hours after midnight means 5 a.m. 10 hours after midnight means 10 a.m. 15 hours after midnight means 3 p.m. Okay, so yet just again reading the hours after midnight. Now I don't know if you need to know that for this. I haven't read it though, actually, the parts of the question yet, but again, just recognizing the explanation given on this. So you should see this as a wave. So immediately when you see this wave, you should be thinking about sinusoidals, right? You got this wave pattern. So we don't know what the question is yet, but we know we're going to have sinusoidals involved. Okay. So, oh, I also did a rationals one the other day too. That's right. Okay. So part A. So part A of the question is determine the amplitude and period. So because it just says determine, you can use any method that you want. So this is just in that written response booklet that we started on Friday. We're just finishing it up. Okay. So when it just says determine, it doesn't say determine algebraically. It doesn't say determine using formulas. You can use whatever method. So you can use the formula. You can just use your reasoning. So amplitude, okay. So use these numbers right here. So this right here means that this is 7.45 and this is 6.60. And this one is 1.15 and 1.50. Okay. And again, like you can just go through and match them up. Okay. Now, amplitude. So total distance. So how far is it from 6.6 to 1.5? Okay. So if we go 6.6 minus 1.5, we get out 5.1. That's the total distance. And then you're going to divide that in half. So 5.1 divided in half, I think is 2.65. 2.55. Oh, that's close. So the amplitude is 2.55 meters. It's half the total distance. Now, I would actually write this in because if you accidentally screw up the 5.5, if they know that you know what it means, if they know that you know that amplitude is half the total distance, you can get possibly a 0.5 for that. So even if you get the 2.55 wrong, you'll get credit for understanding that's half the total distance. You could even take your little wave. You could go like this, and you could write amplitude. So even if you had no idea how to find it, or if you weren't sure if you'd found it properly, you can draw a picture to say, hey, I don't know how to find it. I'm not sure if I've done this right. And you can draw what you know. For period, period is the length of one cycle. Okay? So it doesn't matter what part of the cycle we go with. If you want to go from peak to peak, so you would go from here to here. So how far is that? Okay. You could also go from valley to valley. So you could be like, okay, the period is from here to here. So how far is that? You could do that one. You could also actually do the little wavy thing. So here's the start of the wave. It goes up, down, comes back. How far is that? It doesn't matter which points you pick as long as you do an entire pattern. So either peak to peak, valley to valley, or middle to middle. It doesn't matter. So if I just stick with my peak to peak, this started at 7.45. It finished by 20.05. So how far is that? We're going to subtract. So if somebody wants to punch that in for me, I think it's like 12.5, 12.6. Now, what are your units? Units are hours after midnight. Units here were meters. So 12.6 hours and 2.55 meters. Okay. Now, that's probably going to be worth 1 or 2 marks. Okay, 1 mark for each. Okay. All righty. You're good? Okay, so it says determine the equation of the sinusoidal function in the form. Okay, so again, all it says is determine. So when it says determine, that means we can use either method. So option number 1 would be to use regression. So how on earth would you use regression if you don't have a table of values? Okay, you're given a graph, and the graph has points on it. L1 is always your X, L2 is always your Y. So if you look at this picture here, here's your points. Here's list 1, here's list 2, here's list 1, here's list 2, here's list 1, here's list 2. You would just go through and enter in the points into list 1 and list 2, and then you'd run a sign regression. There's nothing wrong with doing it that way. Like that's one of the key things behind 30-2 is understanding how to run a regression. So do you need me to go through that whole process of button pushing? Are you okay with that? Just do you understand where the list 1, list 2 comes from, right? List 1, list 2 comes from the points on the graph. What I want to do with you is the algebra, okay? Now, there is a tricky bit to the side of algebra. The algebra tricky bit is this. If you screwed up either one of these, then that screw up is going to show up in the algebra version, right? So what you could do, you have 6 hours, as my new t-shirt says, slow down, you've got 6 hours. You could do it algebraically, and actually I'll show you 2 ways to check. You could also do it in both ways. You could make sure that the regression equation gives you the same as the actual equation. The other thing you can do, I'll show you here in a sec. So the first number that we write in is the amplitude. So the amplitude that we found in the last question was 2.55. And then it says sine bx minus 2.14 plus d. So the b value. The b value is not 12.6, right? Remember, in order to find b, we have to calculate. On your formula sheet, 2 pi over period. So you have that, 2 pi over 12.6. right here, round values to the nearest hundredths. So you would punch that whole thing in. You go 2 times pi divided by 12.6. You're going to get out a 0 point something. 50. Okay. So that is just this plugged in. Okay. Now, the number on the end, this is the midline. Okay. So if we go back to our picture, we know that we're going to come down that 2.55 or we come up the 2.55. So if you go 6.6 minus 2.55, or if you go 1.5 plus 2.55, either way, you should land at 4.05, which should go, ooh, yes, 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 that's right, because notice these points are at 4.05, right? They're on that midline. So the midline is 4.05. So you could use these two things together. So you could find it algebraically, or step by step, and then you could also do a list one, list two, and then make sure that they match. If they don't, match, you might want to trust the regression, but you want to make sure that when you go back and look at the regression, make sure that you've got everything plugged in properly. Okay? But determine just means please find. It doesn't give you the actual way to find it. So that means there's always choice involved. So one of the scary things that some kids said in the last on January's exam was when it said determine, they're like, I didn't know how, so I didn't know what I didn't know if what I was doing it right. Do it however you'd want to do it. Determine just means find it, please. Because there are some teachers that teach maybe some really wackadoodle ways of doing stuff, and it's perfectly fine. It's mathematically correct. It's just weird for the rest of us to see it that way. Well, the diploma is not going to penalize those kids. As long as you can find it, and as long as you don't try to convince me that 1 plus 1 is 3, you can do whatever you want. Okay? Yep. So just wanted the equation. Yep. Okay. Okay. Leah must start the first leg of her solo swim with a falling tide of 3 meters in height. What does it mean by a falling tide? What does that mean? It means the level of the water is going down. So they would have to describe that for you in the question. They would say a falling tide is when the height of the water is decreasing. A rising tide is when the height of the water is increasing. Okay? So Leah must start the first leg of her solo swim with a falling tide of 3 meters in height. Find the earliest time of the day that Leah should start the first leg of her swim and then mark and label that point on the graph above. Okay? So the reason why I want to highlight this question to you is make sure you answer the entire thing. So it says find the earliest time, and then it says, and then mark that point on the graph. Okay, so make sure you answer everything. Okay, I'm just going to erase some of the stuff that I've got on here because it's getting a little out of control. Whoops. Ah. Okay. So I'm just going to erase all the stuff that I had on here. Okay, so right now, so from this point to this point, so right here, the tide is rising. Here, the tide is falling. Here, the tide is rising. Here, the tide is falling. Okay? She needs the height to be 3 meters. So right here, the tide is rising. So do I include that point? No. I need to go all the way to right here. This is what I need to find. I need to know when the height of the tide is 3 meters and it's on the falling side. So it's going out. It's decreasing height. So I don't want to find this number. I want to find this number. Okay. So the way we do that is we're going to make y2 equal to 3. Now, I don't know if this would actually be a diploma exam question, because here's the issue. Into y1, you have to put the equation that you just found in the last example. So if you got that last equation wrong, and then you plug in making it equal to 3 and you're looking for where they intersect, that's going to give you another wrong answer. So when I haven't marked diplomas for a few years, but when I did mark them, if the student's process was right, so if they had to use a previous answer to get the next answer, if the previous answer was wrong, obviously this answer is going to be wrong, right? So what we did on the diploma was if their process was right, so if they went y2 equals 3 and they found the correct point on the graph, even if the answer was completely wrong, they still got credit for the work because they're showing that they understood exactly what they needed to do. So they weren't double penalized. Are they going to lose marks on the last question for getting the wrong equation? Yes. But if they use that wrong equation correctly, even though they're ending up with the wrong number, it doesn't matter because they've shown that they understand what they should do. That's the key there. So you're not going to be double penalized for wrong answers. Okay, so don't go, but that means then that you have to. So let's say you have no idea how to do this, no idea. What you would then do here is you would write a little sentence. You'd say, okay, I take my equation from the last one and I go y equals 3 and I'd find the x value for where they intersect. And then you would indicate that point on the picture so that they know you know how to do it. You just don't have the information because you got hung up right here. But at least they know you know what you should do. Okay? So again, I'll leave you to button push that in, but it's pretty straightforward stuff. Now, one thing, the mode on your calculator is going to be set to radians. Do not muck with that. Do not change that mode at all. Leave it in radians for the entire exam. When you're doing your window settings, make sure that they match the picture from the question. So in the question, the x went from 0 to 25. So you're going to go x min, x max. Don't worry about the scale. For the y, you're going to go from 0 to 8. So you're going to make your window settings exactly what they have on the picture. And then from there, you just find that intersection point. Okay, so what you're looking for is this many hours after midnight. Okay. Questions on that? So I just wanted to go through some of the language in that with you, just to kind of let you know that if you can't find the answer to one part and then you realize, oh crap, I needed that answer to get to the next, at least write them a sentence so that they know that you know what you're doing, even though you're not able to actually find the answer. Okay? Yep, so min, max, scale. And they don't actually care about the scale, they're just looking at these two numbers right here. Yeah, and then commas between them. And it's usually got square brackets like that. Okay, pause here. Okay, so let's go through this. Let's see how you do. Okay, so it says here, so what you quickly should have found is that this is all about a tour group, right? And there's all these different questions regarding this tour group. So it says, Best Tours is a tour guide company that offers 2 tours, whale watching and dinner cruise. The following Venn diagram shows the number of people who booked each tour. Of the total 95 people, they all booked at least 1 tour. Why is that last sentence so important? Nope. Right. There's nothing here. There's 0 is neither. Okay, so you know that the universal has to be 95, and you know this is 33, and this is 42. Okay, so this right here is the key to this. Why is that the key? Because this plus this plus this plus that have to equal 95. Okay, so it says determine the number of people that went on the whale watching tour. Now, if you think the answer is 33, you've done something wrong because that was given to you. There's no calculation there. The whale watching tour is everything inside the whale watching circle. It's all of that. So we need to find the value of that question mark. Okay. So when you go through this, so 33 plus something plus 42 has to equal 95. What's the something in the middle? 20? So then how many went whale watching? 33 plus 20. So 53 people. Well, it's not, well, okay. So if the question, if it given to you like this, if that is the, if it says whale watching 33 like that, then the answer would be 33 because this number here represents everything inside that circle. This number here, when it gives it to you like that, that means is the people that just did whale watching, not did dinner cruise. Okay, subtle, right? So, and so then you're gonna be thinking, you're like, nailed it, right? So if this question was worth 1 mark, if this question was worth 1 mark, you would get credit for finding the 20, but you would lose it because you subtracted, so you would get 0.5. Yeah, but at least you're getting 0.5 instead of 0, which is what you would have got if this was a numeric response. Okay. Right. Yes. Okay, so it says the dinner cruise goes 32 kilometers down a river and back up to its starting point. Due to the current of the river, the boat travels at different speeds. So do you understand that? Like when the current is pushing, like think of you're in a canoe, right? When the current's pushing you, you go faster. When you're going against the current, it feels like you're going nowhere, right? The equation that models this is given by below. The total length of the entire cruise is 4 hours. Algebraically determine the speed of the boat. So we have to find V. Okay, so notice it switched from set theory to rationals, but the theme is still the same. Okay, do you want to keep going or do you need a break? Keep going? Okay, so for the rationals, so 32 V plus S, and again, you don't care, sorry, 5, not S, yeah. You don't care where this equation comes from, okay? You don't care. You just have to solve it for V. Okay, so step number 1 in solving a rational equation, make sure that everything is written as a fraction. Everything needs to have a bottom, okay? So first thing you're going to do, common denominator. Yes, I'm sorry. I didn't give you very much. I just wanted to get, yeah. Okay. So actually on the diploma, so this part A, so they gave a really nice big picture, and then part A was underneath it, and then this was on the very next page, and they gave you a whole page for this, right? So there's way more space there than what you actually will need. Don't feel the need to fill it all up. Okay, so think of each of these as their own separate thing. So timesing everything by 1 has no effect. If you want to write the 1 here, you can, but it has no effect. And then you need 1 of every different bracket, and you're going to multiply them, just like we would if they were numbers. Once you have found that, second thing you're going to do is you're going to change your numerators. Okay, so the first denominator is V plus 5. What did this denominator get changed to? What was added in? V minus 5. So if I put in a v minus 5 on the bottom, I have to put a v minus 5 on the top. What was this one changed to? What was added in? A v plus 5. So I have to go 32 times v plus 5. What happened with this one? Everything. So it needs everything. Now, at this step, what you should do off to the side is record your restriction. So what plus 5 is 0? And then what minus 5? 5. So I'm just writing it as plus minus 5. The third thing you then do is you're going to cross off all the bottoms. So swoop, swoop, best part ever. Now we're just going to do the solve. Now here's the tricky bit, okay? When you solve, if you have just x's and numbers, you're going to solve it like you did in grade 8. If you have x squareds, x's, and numbers, you got to make it equal 0. And then we're going to use our what we know about quadratics. So what do we know about quadratics? We're going to either factor it or we're going to use a formula. Okay? And I'll go through that. So the fourth step is by far the nastiest. By far. The most important step that you do is the first one. Because if you get the wrong common denominator, you're going to get the wrong numerators. If you get the wrong numerators, you'll get the wrong solving. But this is why these questions will appear as a long answer, because they're multi-step. And in 30-2, you get credit for that thought process. Okay? So 32 times v, 32 times negative 5, 60? No, 160, yeah. 32 times v, 32 times 5. Okay, when you're doing this, I would do it in 2 steps. Do the v plus 5 times v minus 5 first. So do that FOIL first. So v squared plus 5v minus 5v minus 25. Now we're going to start simplifying. 32 plus 32 is 64v. Negative 160 and positive 160 cancel out. Now, multiplying through by the 4, 4v squared plus 20v minus 20v minus 100. And then the 20v's cancel out. Now you can cancel them out at an earlier step. I just chose to keep them around. Okay, so we have a v squared, we have a v, and we have a number. So that means we're in quadratic purgatory. Sorry, far backside, okay? Okay, so when I saw this question on the diploma, I wasn't to the point of gasping yet, because I was sad at this point, but I was like, okay, well, it'll be fine. So the idea behind quadratics is you have to make them equal 0. Now, you want to keep the x squared always positive. Always. So I'm going to move this guy over to here. So 4v squared minus 64v minus 100. Okay. This is where I started crying. It is not factorable. So, okay, so what you want to do, okay, I'm just going to get out of this mode. I'm going to get to this mode. Okay, what you want to do first. So the first thing you do is you cry, okay? Once you get over yourself, okay, what you're going to do is you're going to try to factor. Now, 4, 64, and 100 can all be divided by 4. So I'm going to take a 4 out of everything. So that takes me down to v squared minus 16v minus 25. Yep. So you can just make it disappear because 0 can never equal 4. So that's why you write it in this step, but then you can just drop it after that. Yes. So normally we would go 0 equals 4, right? And then you'd have v and v, and then you'd solve it underneath. But the 4 plays no part in that solution. So as long as you've shown that you took it out, you don't need to keep it writing it. Okay? Okay. At this point, you're going to get very sad because it's not factorable. You cannot find two numbers that add to get negative. So if this was factorable, you would do v squared negative 16 negative 25. Okay? Okay. So at this point, honestly, when I was going through the diploma, so again, these weren't the exact numbers. I just created a question that wasn't factorable. Okay. So at this point, I got very angry, and I got very angry at Mr. Hughes because he told me that they never asked quadratic formula on the 30-2 diploma. And sure enough, I showed him the question, and he's like, no. And I'm like, yes. So to be honest, because last semester was my first time teaching 30-2, I never even taught this because he told me that there was no reason to. So I was tight on time, so I skipped right over it. Now with you guys, we did a whole day on it. So we spent a whole day on quadratic formula. So on the third thing you're going to do, if this is a no, you're going to use quadratic formula. Okay? So on your formula sheet, right at the very top, no, I'm lying, at the very bottom of the first column, it's there. Okay? So the quadratic formula okay, that is quadratic formula. So that is exactly how it's given on your sheet. So let's just do a little color coding here. So the A appears here and here. The B appears here and here. And the C only appears once right there. Okay? So we are going to drag and drop those numbers into that formula. So instead of having x equals, you will have v equals. So what I would suggest you do is write in the letters A, B, and C. So that way you know what numbers are going where. So negative B. Okay, so B is negative 16. So what's negative of negative 16? 16. Right? Two negatives make a positive. Okay, when you plug this one in right here, you always plug in the positive version of B. So even though B is negative 16, we always just write positive 16. Always. It will save you a whole extra set of brackets. Subtract 4 times A times C all over 2 times A. Now, on your calculator, what you're going to do, take it step by step. Plug that thing in first. So go 16 squared, subtract 4 times 1 times negative 25. Right, don't forget the negative. 356. Okay, so now if you go back and read the question, it says algebraically determine the speed of the boat to the nearest kilometer per hour. So what you're going to do is you're going to plug this in twice. You're going to go 16 plus square root 356 divided by 2. And then you're going to go 16 minus square root of 356 divided by 2. Now, when you plug this in, brackets. There are so many things to remember on this question. There's so many ways you can screw it up. Remember, you've got, this is 15 minutes, right? But on the flip side though, the other parts to this question were very easy. This was just the nasty, nasty part. Now, while you're crunching this through, this is, remember rationals is only about 3 to 4 questions, okay? So because they put such a doozy in the long answer, the 3 multiple choice numeric response, whatever they were stupid easy. Like it was a multiply where everything had already been factored and you just had to cross it off. There was a restrictions question where everything had already been factored and you just had to tell what was in the bottoms. Like that was it. And then there was this thing. Right? So they balance the easy with the hard. But even if you got it down, so this question was worth 3 marks. If you could get it to even this, right? If you could get it to that point right there. So you did a common denominator, you changed the numerators. Even if you got it to that, here's what you could do to cheat. You could plug this thing into y1 and find out the x-intercepts. And it will give you out these answers right here. But you're going to lose marks because you didn't do it algebraically. But you'll get most of the marks because you at least found the answer. So do what you can with what you have. Okay? Melissa, what did you get for the 2 answers? Okay, so nearest the whole number. And then for the other one? Okay, so since we're talking about speed, or does one of these answers not make sense? So we just cross it out. That's our extraneous answer. Okay? Okay, so for those of you that missed there what I was saying to Morgan. So, okay, there's a lot on that board. So that question was worth 3 marks. Okay? So if you think that in your ability, you could go like, you know what, I totally could find the common denominator and I could totally change the numerators and I'm pretty sure I could get it to this point. It's just from here on, it's like, it's sketch, okay? What you could do, and this is what I was saying to Morgan, if you plug that equation into y1 and you found the x-intercepts, you would get out 17 and negative 3. So you would still be able to get to the answer, but they are going to take off a mark for you because you didn't do it algebraically. You did some of the algebra, but not all of the algebra. Now, please keep in mind, this question is standard of excellence. This is a standard of excellence question. So the top 25% of the province should get this right. That's it. Everybody else is going to be on a floating scale beneath that. Okay? So, okay? So honestly, when I saw that, my heart dropped because this was question number 1 and I was terrified to go to question number 2. Okay? This was like no written response first question. So it's at the very end of the test. Okay? But you have to remember though, for each hard, they're going to give you an easy and I'll show you that here in just a quick second. Okay? So if we look at part C, okay? So part C say the odds against a dinner cruise returning on time. Oh, so now we're back to odds. So what unit are we now in? Probability. Okay. So we started in set theory. We move to rationals. Whoops. Now we're into odds and probability. Okay, so it says here, okay, what is the most important word in this question? Against. So the odds against a dinner cruise returning on time is 4 to 13. So this means against, this number means 4. Okay? The odds against a dinner cruise, so we'll just call this company A, and we'll call this one company B. The odds against another company returning on time is 5 to 14. So again, this is against, this is 4. Using probabilities, determine which dinner cruise is more likely to return on time. So to be on time. So for company A, the probability that they will be on time. So which of those two numbers is the on time number? Which of these two numbers is the on time number? 13. Now when you do probability, the bottom is always the total. So 13 out of 17, this one is going to be 14 out of 19. Now those fractions aren't going to mean a hill of beans to you. So what you want to do is convert them to decimals. And it says which one is more likely. You pick the bigger decimal. Yes. So which one is, what are your two decimals? Okay. A? 100th. And what was B? Now, that's why you want to convert them to decimals, because you can't tell if 13 over 17 is bigger than 14 out of 19. It's too close to call. So make sure you actually answer the question. Okay? Or you put a star, like you circle it and say, this one is more likely. Like whatever you do. Yep. That's fine. Yep. Yep. What she did is she converted them both to fractions with the same denominator so she could compare numerators. Good on ya. Okay. Okay, part D. Okay. Okay, so part D, we're going to stay in our probability unit again. So it says at best tours, the probability of selling all the tickets for a dinner cruise each day is 61 out of 100. So the probability of selling is 61 out of 100. At another company, the probability of selling all the tickets is 11 out of 14. The ticket sales at one company are not affected by the ticket sales of another company. In other words, they are independent events. That's what that means. One has nothing to do with the other. Determine the probability that both companies do not sell all of their dinner cruise tickets. Okay? So the probability that they both not sell. Okay. So if they have a 61 out of 100 chance of selling their tickets, what would be the odds? What is the probability of not selling their tickets? 39. And how about for the other company? Would be what out of 14? 3. Okay, listen to my words. Are you looking for not company A and not company B, or not company A or not company B? And, because it's both. What does and mean in math? Times. So you go 39 out of 100 times 3 out of 14. whatever that number is. It didn't say to round it, so I would keep it as a fraction because it doesn't mention rounding. When you're not mentioning rounding, their assumption is that it's an exact number. Yeah, it's a weird number. Sure. Okay. Okay, so what I'm going to do with you, we're going to leave you to do the last one. We'll let you two stay in here if you want. Okay. So try the last one. Okay. When you guys come in tomorrow, I will go through this last one with you. Or do you want to just do it together right now? Do it on your own. Okay. So I'm going to hit pause again. Okay. Okay, let's put some of you out of your misery. I won't finish this. We'll just start it. So part A, you've got this slide. So again, on the picture on the diploma, there was a little kid going up the slide. So you could tell this thing was really tall. Okay. And you've got the child's path down the slide. So first off, when you see that equation, what unit are you in? The one we just did, polynomials, right? This is a cubic. Okay. Y is the vertical height and X is the horizontal distance. So it's not time. So on this, what this graph is the Y is the height off of the ground. And this is the distance that they traveled. So they're both answers are in meters. It's not height and time. It's vertical height and horizontal distance. Okay. So part A, at the start of the slide, how high is the person off the ground? So you can tell from that slide, right? They're going to go down, they come up, they go down, right? It's kind of like that. Now, could you plug this thing into Y1? Okay. And what would you be looking for on the graph? The y-intercept, right? Now, you could save yourself a whole lot of bother. When you look at the equation, what in that equation is the y-intercept? The constant term, right? So the number on the end is 7.2 meters. Yep. So that's what I mean. They want everybody to get 1 out of 5 or 1 out of 7 or whatever it's being marked out of. They want everybody to be able to get 1. Just 7. Yep, that's the answer for A, 7.2 meters. So again, yep, yep, yep. So nope, nope, not at all. Now, if it said, how would you determine that without using your graphing calculator, like as a part B, you would say it'd be the constant term of the polynomial function, but you wouldn't have, it didn't ask you for it. Okay, yep. Okay. 3x and x, what do you mean? Right, x1 and x1, so x is the common denominator, and then you would need a 3. So the common denominator of 3x and x is 3x, not 3x squared. Yeah. Right, no, no. Okay. Okay, you got a kid, okay? He's a smart kid. Okay? Yeah, this is Sheldon. Well, it's not Sheldon because Sheldon wouldn't make a mistake. So it says, at the carnival, a child's hot chocolate is cooling down. The equation that models the temperature, so this is the temp, over minutes is given by that. Okay, now listen to my question. What unit are you in? What type of equation is that? It's an exponential because you've got an x in the power position. This is y equals a times b to the x. Okay? So this is showing decay because it's a number between 0 and 1. Now, does that make sense based on this scenario? Is the temperature decaying over time? Yes. Okay. So a child incorrectly determines that it takes 1.3 minutes for their hot chocolate to cool to a temperature of 24 degrees Celsius. Here's what they did. So they plugged in 24 here, and they went 80.714 to the M. Okay. This is called error analysis. And error analysis is one of the hardest things we do in math in grade 12. You have to follow somebody else's reasoning, and inevitably it's called error analysis, not correct analysis, because they always screw up. When they screw up, you must start at the top of the question and work your way down, asking yourself at each step, how did they get this step? And if you can't figure it out or you get something different, make that your mistake. Okay, so at each step, go. So what did they do here? So that was the first one. So did they plug 24 into the right spot? Yes. So they did step 1 right. Step 2, they have 24 equals 57.12 m. Well, how did they get the 57.12? They multiplied this. That is what you cannot do. What this comes down to is bed mass. This is multiply. This is an exponent. In the word bed mass, what do you have to do first? You have to do brackets first, then exponents, then multiply. They did the multiply first, and then they're going to deal with the exponent. That is the problem. Okay. Now, there is a set way all exponential equations are solved. They're all solved the exact same way. So the error was multiplying the 80 and the 0.714. The correct solution. First thing you're going to do is you're going to divide both sides by the A value. That is step 1. So what they should have done right here, they should have divided both sides by 80, and they would have been left with that. It's up to you. They're not going to mark it either way. Okay? Just don't round the decimal, whatever you find. So if you're going to go 24 divided by 80, make sure you write out, make sure you're using the entire answer that's on your calculator screen. Don't use a rounded answer at any step of the way. Okay? The second thing you do is you are going to convert to logs. And that's it, you guys. That's the whole thing. You divide both sides by A, and then you convert to logs. So when you do this, I've got log base. So remember, this is the base, this is the exponent, this is the value. So in this equation here, which one is the base? Which one's the base? Right. Which one is the exponent? M. Yep. And then that leaves us with 24 over 80 being some random value. So you've got 0.714, 24 over 80 m. So the question says, determine the first mistake that they made, then provide a correct algebraic solution. So at this point then, you would just plug this in using your MAM key, and you get out the minutes. Yeah, like I said, this was just me. Yes, they tell you to round it to the nearest minute or nearest tenth of a minute. Yeah. Okay, guys. So we'll do part C tomorrow. Actually, no, we've got a couple minutes. No, it's a rationals. So notice again, we started with a polynomial unit, then we went to exponents and logs, and we're going to finish up with rationals. Okay, but this rationals, I promise, is way easier than the last one. Way, way, way easier. Okay.